Hi, I'm Lauren Tennyson. In this presentation, I will analyze the language policy in the school in which I teach and how state and district mandates are detrimental to the progress of our growing number of emergent bilingual students. I have taught at Santa Rita Elementary for 4 years. I spent 3 of the 4 years teaching kindergarten and had the great pleasure of looping with my students last year by teaching first grade. Next year, I will return to kindergarten. In my 4 years, I have participated in activities and committees outside of the regular school day, including teaching children in the after-school program, mentoring new teachers, and providing input at our district's curriculum council meetings. During this time, I have also collaborated and planned with several other teachers at my school site and have gained new insight into the challenges and obstacles the students at Santa Rita face. In addition, I also live less than a mile from the school and have become familiar with the community in which my students live. Salinas is located on the central coast of California. The primary source of income is farming. In fact, Salinas has become known as the salad bowl, and I bet the next time you buy strawberries at the grocery store, the packaging will say that they came from Salinas or Watsonville. Most of the families in our community are migrant farm workers who move with the crops, which has been getting more and more difficult as laws and legislations as well as mindsets are changing nationwide. Many of the families live in apartments or homes with multiple relatives or other families and have on average 3 to 4 children. After analyzing state and district policies using the guiding questions listed in Educating English Learners for a Transformed World, written by Collier and Thomas, 2014, I propose a more holistic approach to biliteracy development. There are several California initiatives which have greatly impacted the education of emerging bilingual students. In 1986, Proposition 63 didn't eliminate bilingual education. However, it created enough anti-bilingual sentiment to rid of state funding for bilingual education programs in California, and proved to Latinos that the use of languages other than English was heavily frowned upon. Proposition 187 in 1994, later declared unconstitutional, also didn't eliminate bilingual education, but it aimed to identify and limit public school attendance of Latino children if they or their parents lacked proper identification, proof of U.S. citizenship, or resident alien status. More recently, in August of 1997, Proposition 207 denied Latinos, other minorities, and women equal access to California's public colleges and universities. This proposition re-solidified Latinos' thinking in the fact that California's dominant mainstream voters were trying to control them along with other minorities. Even more recent, in 1998, one of the most impactful propositions passed was Proposition 227. Due to the ever-growing and virulent efforts of English-only proponents, Proposition 227 outlawed bilingual education in California public schools. Although these initiatives may seem irrelevant to literacy instruction, they have negatively influenced the public's attitude towards Latinos and the use of Spanish in classrooms. This negative rhetoric does not remain in the public domain, but filters down from the mass media and the larger socio-political context to Mexicano-Latino homes, to parents and their children who embrace it, subconsciously and uncritically, without understanding it. This is from Halcón, 2001. This thinking has, at times, been proven to lead to self-hate, which can hinder learning. The policies and practices within my school site prove that being bilingual is seen as a deficit. According to Gamut, online, provided by the CSBA, California School Boards Association, the Santa Rita Union School District Board of Trustees intends to provide English language learners with challenging curriculum and instruction that develop proficiency in English as rapidly and effectively as possible in order to assist students in accessing the full educational program and achieving the district's academic standards. Students who are English language learners shall be educated through structured English immersion, or SEI, programs during a temporary transition period not normally intended to exceed 1 year. Nearly all of the classroom instruction in the district's sheltered English immersion program shall be in English, but with the curriculum and presentation designed for students who are learning the language. This is from Education Code 305 and 306. Although the legislation goes on to read that providing instructions, clarification, and support in Spanish is acceptable, this, you'll find out later in my presentation, is not taking place. The issue with bilingual students being placed in SEI classes is the time that it takes for them to fully understand and acquire a new language without instruction or support in their native language. Collier and Thomas, in 2014, conducted research over the course of many years as to how long it takes to close the gap when U.S. schooling is only in English. They looked at over 3,000 newly arriving immigrants who were at or above grade level in their home country where schooling was in their native language, with the idea that it would take them the shortest amount of time to achieve academically in English, the second language. What they found was astounding. Students who arrived between the ages of 8 and 11 took only 5 to 7 years to meet language expectations. However, those who arrived before age 8 required an average of 7 to 10 years or more to reach grade level in English, and many never made it because they ran out of school years first. This led to the conclusion that first language schooling, whether in a child's home country or in the U.S., is crucial in acquiring a second language. To demonstrate how California and district policies have affected the climate at Santa Rita, the following are a few stories that I would like to share. 3 years ago, while I was standing in the main office at Santa Rita, I overheard a conversation between the principal and the school secretary. A parent had just walked in and asked if our school offered any bilingual classes, and the school secretary and I looked at each other unsure of what to say, because as far as we knew, there weren't any. As the parent walked out after hearing some jumbled, half-hearted response, the principal, Mr. Hasso, walked up and we relayed what had just happened to him. He told us that we try not to mention bilingual classes because if 20 parents request it, then the school will be forced to hire a bilingual teacher, and it's not something anyone really wants to do. During this past school year, at a district-wide curriculum council meeting, we discussed different social studies programs that we were considering adopting. We were having a conversation surrounding a program that offered text in Spanish, when Mrs. Fink, who teaches first grade, said, "We teach in English though, so why would we need a program that has a Spanish component?" Furthermore, of the 29 credentialed teachers at our school, 19 of them speak little to no Spanish. Therefore, communicating, much less collaborating and drawing upon parents' experiences, is very challenging. Notes sent home in Spanish are riddled with grammatical errors, and I've even come across teachers who in their back-to-school letter mention that they do not speak any Spanish, so that the parents will need to bring an interpreter if they have any questions about their child or their child's classroom. Below is a graph I created using data from the School Accountability Report Card website, showing the overwhelmingly high number of emerging bilinguals at Santa Rita, as well as how our school has the largest school population overall. In the next slide, you will see that our students are at a great disadvantage due to these high numbers. This graph shows student performance data collected from Santa Rita Union School District, which is the district in which I work, and the state of California. All of these above state assessments are administered in English, which is detrimental to the development of literacy and biliteracy skills of the students at Santa Rita. These assessments also make it difficult to measure students' progress because rather than compare a student's progress across grade levels, The comparison of this data is based on different groups of students. A more efficient and accurate way in which to assess emerging bilinguals, according to Escamilla et al., 2014, would be to measure a child's growth in Spanish and English in reading and writing annually and across time. Furthermore, Escamilla and her colleagues suggest that children's progress be interpreted not by monolingual Spanish or monolingual English grade level or benchmark standards, but rather by standards developed specifically to measure emerging biliteracy. Rather than measuring students via static cut scores, as is done at Santa Rita, teachers and schools should assess students through ranges. In order to help our students at Santa Rita to succeed, we must begin to respect their home language and culture by incorporating it into our classroom routines. Traditional parent involvement, like that at Santa Rita, has focused on what parents can do to prepare their children for school. However, in order to create change, we need to instead think about how we, as educators, as a school, can nurture children's pride in their own families and communities, as well as how we can work with parents in ways that are both respectful and rewarding. Based on Reyes et al.'s 2012 research, children's emergent writing was supported when parents and family members brought into the classroom various cultural texts in the home language, embedded in a variety of media, such as videos, calendars, newspapers, and advertisements. The most important contributing factor to biliteracy development was the interaction that occurred between parents and children in the presence of literary artifacts in their native language. This is from Reyes, Kenner, Mall, and Oriana, 2012. To elaborate on this point, I would like to draw upon the research and work conducted by Ara and Zubizarrate. In this course, I decided to write my reaction paper on an article published in The Best for Our Children, Critical Perspectives on Literacy for Latino Students, pertaining to the key role that Latino parents play in their child's education, and how we as teachers need to become cultural bridge builders. If teachers were to develop a more child-centered curriculum, then families and students would feel valued. Ada and Zubizarrete, 2001, suggest that teachers begin by authoring a personal book that can be sent home and shared with families. In doing this, we can break the ice and start to tear down the barriers of initiating a deeper dialogue between home and school. In doing this, we can break down the misconceptions that state and district policies have created and express to parents how important their role is in their child's education, along with showing them that we respect them as human beings. Another approach to literacy development that Ada and Zubizarrete, 2001, suggest is called transformative family literacy, in which parents and children become authors. Transformative family literacy places a high value on parents' home language and the role it plays in the development of a child's linguistic and cognitive development, creating a more supportive environment where students are respected and are comfortable taking risks, an environment where, as Ada and Zubizarrete say, learning can flourish. In their article, Reyes and her colleagues, 2012, mentioned several times the importance of acknowledging that bilinguals and monolinguals are fundamentally different. Reyes also summarizes the work of Valdez from 2003, which showed that children's ability to interpret, comprehend, and switch between languages should be recognized as a special talent, not a deficit, and that these competencies could and should be incorporated into formal curricular activities to support biliteracy development. Over the course of this class, I have learned that biliteracy means the ability to perform communicative and academic functions involving reading, writing, speaking, and listening in two languages. This is from Molly Nuex in 2009. What I found most enlightening about Reyes' research was how they state that there are interactions which build biliteracy, that will take place spontaneously in the classroom, regardless of the language policies within the school. Thus, I believe that the teachers and staff at Santa Rita should begin to encourage rather than discourage these interactions to increase biliteracy and help our students succeed. One of these practices is code switching, which allows children to develop cognitive abilities such as metalinguistic awareness. This cognitive ability in turn supports transfer to biliteracy writing competencies as children learn to switch languages and texts according to their audience. Another similar practice is interliteracy. Interliteracy can serve several functions, according to Reyes and her colleagues. A, making sense of and conveying a clear message. B, expanding students' ideas. C, considering their audience. And or D, entertaining by adding humor and predicting the audience's reaction. Interliteracy also allows students to engage in metalinguistic reflection and discussion about the written forms and patterns of each language. After reading Biliteracy from the Start, Literacy Squared in Action, I would make several suggestions to Santa Rita Elementary so that we can improve our literacy instruction for our large population of emerging bilinguals. Camila and her colleagues in 2014 created a program called Literacy Squared, which focuses on developing emerging bilinguals' literacy skills by integrating oracy, reading, writing, and metalanguage. According to Camila et al., oracy is an aspect of oral language, but it includes a more specific subset of skills and strategies within oral language that more closely relates to literacy objectives in academic settings. Furthermore, oracy instruction is comprised of 3 pieces: language structures, vocabulary, and dialogue. Objectives and instruction will more than likely be different in each language because students' Spanish oracy skills may be at a slightly more elevated level than their English oracy skills. And language instruction should extend or spiral across grade levels rather than be repeated, which is what we're seeing at Santa Rita. Reading. In terms of reading instruction at Santa Rita, teachers and staff should adopt a simultaneous approach to teaching. For example, paired literacy instruction as implemented in Literacy Squared includes authentic reading instruction in Spanish, as well as the need to consider how learning to read in 2 languages differs from learning to read in English as a first language. The program that Camila and her colleagues have created will better meet the needs of simultaneous dual language learners because it utilizes best practice principles that are specific to each language. And whenever possible, teachers should incorporate culturally and personally relevant texts that are originally written in Spanish, as well as Spanish-English bilingual texts, rather than translated or patterned after commercially produced English literacy programs. The program that we use at Santa Rita currently is an English-only literacy program. It does not have any bilingual components. According to Camila et al., there needs to be an increased emphasis placed on writing and teaching emerging bilingual learners because bilingual students' writing develops in ways that are different than those of their monolingual English-speaking peers. Unfortunately, at Santa Rita, due to policies and mindsets, we are teaching emerging bilinguals as if they were monolingual students, which is making it difficult for them to make or show any progress. Furthermore, bilingual students' writing abilities in each language develops at different rates. If we were to help students attend to the differences and similarities across languages, such as in the Didato program, then they would be able to draw on all their bilingual competencies as they become biliterate, so that they can naturally engage in cross-language or bidirectional transfer. And this is from Camila et al., 2014. Metalanguage was a completely new term that I learned in this course, and Camila and her colleagues briefly defined metalanguage as thinking and talking about language, as well as understanding the relationships between and within languages. Furthermore, it is the language used to talk about language, and its mastery allows students to analyze how language can be leveraged to express meaning. Meta-language skills are important for emerging bilingual students because when learners of two languages pick up on the similarities and differences between two different language systems, they tend to have improved phonological awareness in comparison to monolingual students. Emerging bilingual students who are learning two different language systems have an enhanced ability to transfer conceptual knowledge and skills across languages. The teachers at Santa Rita should give students plenty of opportunities to utilize cross-language metacognitive skills, such as translation and adaptation, because this will allow them to compare languages more thoroughly. Providing students with opportunities to process and communicate across languages also helps them strengthen their understanding of the reciprocal nature of languages. And additionally, Escamilla et al. State that as students compare languages on a deeper level, they gain a deeper understanding of content matter, strengthen language competence, and nurture powerful literacy competencies. Educational and pedagogical policy should treat children's bilingualism and biliteracy as part of the solution rather than part of the problem, and this perspective should become a key component of educational reforms that address and fit diverse students' home linguistic capital with classroom discourses. This is from Reyes et al., 2012. In his article, Molly Nuex, in 2009, discusses how that much-needed academic language proficiency in English need not be at the cost of supporting students' emergent bilingualism and biliteracy, and that over time, English learners make great gains. Furthermore, he, or Molly Nuex, believes that we as educators should recognize and value our students' language and culture because squandering of these resources is not only a personal loss for children, but for society as well. He draws upon Cummings' 2001 research to reiterate this point throughout the article that he wrote, particularly in this quote: "Bilingual education can serve to support more collaborative classroom and homeschool interactions, serving as microcosms of the kind of caring society that we would like our own children and grandchildren to inherit." Although the likelihood of Santa Rita transitioning to a bilingual school is very slim, I would recommend that they hire and train Spanish-speaking teachers to help in the classroom, to adopt a co-teaching type environment in which one teacher is instructing students in English while the other supports and guides in Spanish. This model, unfortunately, would not be a completely bilingual atmosphere. However, I think it would be a great place to start. As the process gets started and teachers, staff, and students are trying to navigate their new roles, it will be important to remind them of the advantages and gains from being bilingual, in addition to remaining patient, as it typically takes upward of 5 years to attain grade level skills in academic use of a second language. Teachers will also need to be reminded that biliteracy development is a dynamic, fluid, and at times seemingly messy process, as Reyes et al. States in 2012. In order to change the policies to fit the needs of our learners, we as educators need to begin conversations pertaining to biliteracy, implement the practices, and advocate for our students. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time and attention.